We all know that perfect mom. She's the one who always has the most delicious dinner ideas, dresses her children in adorable matching outfits, shares the cutest photos on your Instagram feed, and somehow still manages to squeeze in time for her daily workout routine. But today we're peeling back the layers of social media perfection to tell you the story of a Massachusetts mom everyone wanted to be, who tragically tore apart her loving family with her own bare hands. Join us on this eye-opening journey through the dark side of social media perfection as we uncover the truth behind the seemingly idyllic life of Lindsay Clancy and explore the devastating consequences of the pressure to be the perfect mom. I'm Brandy, and you're watching Killer Bites. In the Miracle Morning Facebook group, 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy enthusiastically shared her efforts to carve out some precious me time by waking up at 5 in the morning to work out, meditate, and practice visualization techniques. Impressively, she managed to maintain this routine even after nights when she had barely slept for 2 hours, caring for her newborn baby. But of course, life wasn't always so picture perfect. Just like everyone else, Lindsay grappled with her mental health from time to time. Behind the glowing social media facade, she faced her share of struggles and challenges, which often went unnoticed by her followers. A few more months passed, and Lindsay turned to another online support group called I'm Not Alone, Postpartum Depression / Anxiety and Rage. In this forum, she openly shared her ongoing symptoms despite taking an antidepressant medication called. She revealed that another medication she had been prescribed in the past, a benzodiazepine similar to had been more effective in managing her symptoms. However, she expressed concerns about returning to the drug, fearing that she might become addicted. As Lindsay's mental health continued to deteriorate, the once admired and envied perfect mom began to unravel. It's a sobering reminder that what we see on social media is often just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the carefully curated images and seemingly flawless lives, there are real people with real struggles, desperately trying to keep up appearances while dealing with their inner demons. Like many new mothers juggling the demands of caring for a newborn alongside older children, Lindsay had her fair share of good days and bad days. Her husband, Patrick, worked during the day, but he made a conscious effort to help with errands and childcare whenever he could. Patrick couldn't help but notice the gradual worsening of Lindsay's depression in the months following the birth of their youngest child, Callan. He often caught glimpses of her dark thoughts, which she would sometimes express through casual asides. However, when Lindsay was screened at the Women and Infant Hospital Center a few weeks earlier, she was told that she did not have postpartum depression or exhibit any of its typical symptoms. At 32 years old, Lindsay was relatively open about her mental health journey on Facebook, and she did not hide her struggles from her husband. But there was one thing Patrick was unaware of. Lindsay kept a secret diary within the notes on her phone, where she candidly reflected on her deepest thoughts and emotions. In her diary, she discussed experiencing a touch of postpartum anxiety as she prepared to return to work. She also expressed her hopes of having more children in the future and even contemplated whether she harbored resentment towards her 5-year-old daughter, Cora, and 3-year-old son, Dawson, for preventing her from giving Callan the attention she would have given to a firstborn child. But between the time of these diary entries and January 24th, something shifted. The morning started like any other day. Lindsay fed the children breakfast, saw Patrick off to work, and took Cora to a doctor's checkup. She was well-dressed, punctual, and even engaged in small talk with the receptionist. According to the pediatrician, everything seemed completely normal during the appointment. Despite outward appearances, however, a storm was brewing beneath the surface. The pressures of motherhood, coupled with her ongoing mental health struggles, had been slowly chipping away at Lindsay's resolve. As her diary revealed, she grappled with feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and resentment, all of which threatened to push her over the edge. In the days leading up to the tragic events that would shock the community and shatter her family, Lindsay's mental state continued to deteriorate. As the story unfolds, we are left to wonder how such a tragedy could have been prevented and what role, if any, the healthcare system played in failing to identify and address Lindsay's growing mental health crisis. We're reminded that the picture-perfect images we see on social media rarely capture the full extent of a person's life, and that behind the facade of a loving mother and devoted wife, there may be a woman quietly fighting a battle she cannot win on her own. So when Lindsay asked Patrick to run a couple of errands on his way home from work that day, he didn't think twice. The children needed some medicine from CVS, so Patrick called Lindsay to confirm the specific brand they required. She also asked him to pick up dinner, and when he inquired about her preference, she opted for a Mediterranean power bowl. At first glance, these details may seem mundane and insignificant, but they would later become crucial elements in the investigation into Lindsay's state of mind on that fateful day. When Patrick returned home, he discovered that his life had been irrevocably altered. Upon entering the house, the first thing Patrick noticed was the eerie silence. With 2 toddlers and a newborn, the Clancy household was usually filled with the sounds of laughter and activity, but now there was nothing. He called out for Lindsay to inform her he had returned with dinner, but received no answer. Her car was still in the driveway, so she had to be at home. That's when he glanced out the window and saw her in the backyard. Lying motionless in the grass beneath the second-story window, Lindsay appeared unconscious. Patrick rushed outside to check on her, finding her unresponsive but still breathing. Desperate and terrified, he tried to comfort his wife as he dialed 911, praying that she would hold on until emergency services arrived. While remaining on the phone with the dispatcher, Patrick followed their instructions for administering life-saving measures until paramedics could take over. As they tended to Lindsay, a horrifying realization dawned on Patrick. The children were nowhere to be seen. Frantic and filled with dread, Patrick sprinted back into the house in search of his children. He made his way to the basement, a favorite play area for the kids, and that's when his worst fears were confirmed. In a chilling moment captured on the 911 call, Patrick can be heard screaming for the responding officers to come to his aid as he tells the dispatcher she killed the kids. In a matter of minutes, the once idyllic Clancy household had transformed into a nightmare. With Lindsay unconscious in the backyard and the lifeless bodies of their children discovered in the basement, Patrick was left reeling from the shock and devastation of the horrific scene that had unfolded before him. As investigators would later piece together the events of that tragic day, the seemingly ordinary details of Lindsay's conversation with Patrick about errands and dinner choices would take on a new significance. They would provide valuable insight into her mindset and unravel the complex web of factors that may have contributed to the heartbreaking and unimaginable outcome that forever changed the Clancy family. The children were swiftly taken to the emergency room, where doctors made every effort to save baby Callan's life. Tragically, he succumbed to his injuries there, joining his older siblings in death. Lindsay, too, was transported to the hospital as quickly as possible. Upon regaining consciousness, she discovered she was paralyzed from the waist down due to a spinal cord injury sustained in the fall. 2 weeks later, during her arraignment, Lindsay could do little more than listen to the contrasting narratives being presented by the attorneys. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague meticulously connected the dots for the court. She argued that Lindsay had devised a cunning plan, creating an errand for her husband that would provide her with at least 25 minutes alone with the children to carry out her calculated intentions. According to Sprague, Lindsay heard a voice in her head urging her to kill her children and herself, as this would be her final opportunity, and so she did. Meanwhile, the defense lawyer on the other side of her Zoom call offered a different perspective. Lindsay's actions were not premeditated, but rather the culmination of a slow, harrowing decline into mental illness that had begun almost 8 months earlier. She had persistently sought treatment for her postpartum depression, resulting in 13 prescriptions for psychoactive medications in less than 4 months. Despite her efforts, a doctor's evaluation in December diagnosed her not with postpartum depression, but with a generalized anxiety disorder. Just 3 weeks before the tragic events, Lindsay had been a patient for 5 days at McLean Hospital, a local psychiatric facility. She was released based on an evaluation that concluded she posed no danger to herself or others. Lindsay's attorney argued that she had been let down by the healthcare system and revealed that Patrick had even sought help from her doctors the week before the murders, imploring them to try a different approach to her treatment. He explained that the cocktail of antidepressants, mood stabilizers, benzodiazepines, and sleep aids like Ambien had turned Lindsay into a zombie. As the legal proceedings unfolded, all Lindsay could do was blink helplessly while the mental health evaluations she had sought became the deciding factors in determining her fate. Just how responsible was Lindsay for the horrific scene in which she was found? Postpartum depression affects 1 in 10 pregnancies in America, with some studies suggesting it may be as prevalent as 1 in 6. Countless new mothers experience mixed feelings during the initial months of motherhood, but this does not always signify postpartum depression. In Lindsay's case, the struggle to determine the extent of her mental illness would have lasting implications for her and her family. Lindsay Clancy informed her family and investigators that she killed her children and attempted to take her own life during a brief episode of postpartum psychosis, the voices that the district attorney mentioned. This condition occurs in approximately 1 in 1,000 full-term pregnancies. Before or after her hospital visits, Lindsay had never disclosed to her husband that she heard voices or believed she was experiencing psychosis. It wasn't until after the crimes were committed that she revealed any hallucinations, which the DA's office used to strengthen their case against her. Investigators discovered data on Lindsay's phone that helped them corroborate the events leading up to the evening of January 24th, raising the question of how much premeditation had gone into the murders. After returning from the pediatrician, Lindsay took photos of the children building snowmen and sent them to her husband and mother. By 4:15, she had used Apple Maps to locate a restaurant for dinner and calculated the time it would take to drive there and back. 40 minutes later, she requested Patrick to go out and fetch dinner. During a brief, less than 15-second phone call, she reminded him what he needed to pick up from CVS. Patrick described the conversation as normal, stating that she seemed like she was in the middle of something. So the central question the lawyers are attempting to answer for the court is, what does postpartum depression, or more specifically, postpartum psychosis, look like? As you might expect, these are challenging questions to address, if not impossible. Nevertheless, these are the decisions that judges must confront in this case. Over 20 countries have implemented laws that reduce penalties for mothers who murder children under the age of 1. Most of these countries also provide psychiatric care for the affected mothers. In 2018, Illinois became the first American state to pass a law that considers postpartum mental illness as a mitigating factor in sentencing. While the discussion surrounding the treatment of mental health conditions in the courtroom has led to changes in some places, it has not impacted the approach of District Attorney Tim Cruz, the prosecutor overseeing Lindsay Clancy's charges. Currently, Cruz's office is pursuing first-degree murder charges against Lindsay, which carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment without parole. In the public sphere, a group of dedicated mothers continue to support Lindsay's mental health journey, with many of them tweeting under the hashtag LAOL, Lindsay's Army of Love. However, if you read the comments ranging from Chris Cuomo to Twitter replies, people struggle to see past the horrific crimes and acknowledge Lindsay's mental health journey. Postpartum mood and anxiety disorders, or PMADs, can manifest suddenly, typically within 4 to 6 weeks after giving birth. Women affected by these disorders may experience mania, depression, delusions, auditory hallucinations, or paranoia. They may also appear perfectly normal for varying periods of time. The complexity of PMADs and the wide range of symptoms they present make it difficult for people to understand the severity of a mother's mental health struggles. This lack of understanding contributes to the challenges faced in determining appropriate legal action and societal support for individuals like Lindsay and Latarsha. While public opinion may be divided, the importance of considering mental health factors in the courtroom cannot be understated. Jurors, attorneys, and judges must be well informed about the nuances of PMADs in order to deliver fair and just verdicts. Reverend Robert Dean, the clergyman who baptized baby Callan, delivered a heartfelt sermon the week before Lindsay Clancy's arraignment. During his address, he urged family members and the entire community to be more aware and compassionate towards the struggles that others might be going through, especially when it comes to mental health issues. He emphasized the importance of understanding and recognizing what burdens others in the community might be carrying, and how offering support can make a difference in their lives. When the time came for the Clancy children's funeral, Patrick found himself unable to speak through his overwhelming grief. In an act of kindness and support, Reverend Dean stepped in to read the eulogy that had been written for the young lives that were lost. The case of Lindsay Clancy and the tragic deaths of her 3 children has shaken the community and the nation, prompting an intense debate about postpartum mental health, societal support systems, and the legal response to cases involving mothers with postpartum disorders. As the prosecution and defense present their arguments in court, we're reminded of the complexities and contradictions that surround this heart-wrenching case. It's clear that Lindsay Clancy was in the throes of a severe mental health crisis, exacerbated by her struggles with postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. The narrative of her decline, marked by multiple attempts to seek help and a rapid deterioration in her mental state, paints a picture of a woman who was failed by the healthcare system. Public opinion about the case remains divided, with many expressing sympathy for Lindsay's mental health struggles, while others struggle to reconcile these challenges with the horrific nature of her crimes. The case of Lindsay Clancy raises questions about the appropriateness of such an approach in the United States, where the legal system's handling of postpartum mental health issues varies significantly from state to state. Plymouth County District Attorney Tim Cruz's decision to pursue first-degree murder charges against Lindsay, carrying a maximum penalty of life imprisonment without parole, has been met with criticism. The need for increased awareness, understanding, and support for mothers struggling with postpartum disorders is evident, as is the necessity for a more comprehensive and effective healthcare response. The legal system, too, must adapt to better address the complexities and challenges associated with postpartum mental health disorders. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brandy, and we'll see you next time on Killer Bites.